Good evening. Now, we know that this is a Sheila Boston event, and that was a good effort at the good evening response. But we know if Sheila's here, it's got to be a lot more. So we're going to try one more time with Sheila feeling good evening. Now, that's what I'm talking about. So my name is Bret Parker. I'm the executive director here at the City Bar. I appreciate all of you for being here in this full house. I'm so excited to see everyone. It's such a wonderful event. We're going to start with an interfaith invocation by the Reverend Dr. Kevin R. Johnson.
Beloved, we are so thankful to be here today to celebrate Sheila, and I want to thank all of the Abyssinians who have come out. We love you, Sheila. You mean the world to us. Let us pray. Creator, we come tonight to gather with grateful hearts to celebrate our beloved sister, Sheila Boston. We thank you for her legacy of leadership and for her acumen as it relates to being a lawyer. And tonight, we give you thanks as she has a rare opportunity, and that is for her likeness to be in this hall, not just today, but forever. We thank you for raising up lawyers like Sheila, especially in times like these, times that test our faith, times that test our resolve, and times that challenge our convictions. But yet, through it all, Sheila has remained consistent. She has remained faithful, and she has remained a woman of great integrity. May her legacy live on, and may other young lawyers who come into the New York City Bar Association look at her portrait and say, I too can be a lawyer. I too can be great. I too can be all that God has created me to be. We ask now, God, for your favor and for your blessings upon this night. In your name we pray. Let everyone say, amen.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Reverend. Sheila told me I've got 5 minutes, so I'm going to take up the full 10. It is my great pleasure as the president of the New York City Bar Association to welcome you all to this very special occasion, the unveiling of the portrait of our past president, Sheila Boston. So happy to see, Sheila, your entire network, your family members, your law firm colleagues, folks that you've encountered throughout your life be here today. It's a beautiful, beautiful ceremony here tonight. So when I first heard that we were honoring Sheila in this way, it struck me that this moment is not only a recognition of her incredible leadership, but also a deeply personal one for me. Back in 2004, I was a first-year law student at CUNY Law School, deep in Queens, in Flushing, across the street from a cemetery. And Sheila came out. She came out to speak at an information session on the 1L Diversity Fellowship Program that she ran then at the association, and that we're still running today. She trekked out to Queens. That was a sort of a gesture that many might view as routine, but to me, it was anything but. Here she was, a partner at a prominent law firm in Midtown, showing up, leaning in, and investing in students like me and many others who might feel far removed from those kinds of opportunities. And I remember the evening clearly, how inspired I felt, how encouraged I was, and how I thought that if she's doing this, maybe I can do this too. So Sheila, you've led our profession during some of the most challenging times as the first woman of color to serve as the president of this association. Over 150 years of history before that moment. You broke barrier after barrier. As the pandemic president, she guided our association through the dark moments of COVID-19, redefining what resilience and hope can look like. Her leadership was not just symbolic, it was practical. It was grounded in mentorship. It was grounded in access. It was grounded in inclusivity and diversity and equity. And that same spirit is the spirit that I witnessed 21 years ago. And that same spirit has only grown stronger in her work since. So Sheila, tonight we celebrate you, not just for all that you have accomplished in the courtrooms and in the boardrooms, but for the many lives that you have touched, the doors that you have opened, the hope that you have instilled in so many young lawyers, including me. So please join me in extending the warmest, the most heartfelt thanks to Sheila. Sheila, we are honored to have your portrait hanging here at the Bar Association, a permanent reminder of your legacy of service, your legacy of leadership, and your legacy of inspiration. And thank you all for being here tonight. And now I will turn over the program to Ellen.
Thank you. I'm Ellen Fleishhacker. I'm the co-chair of Arnold and Porter. We are lucky enough to have Sheila as our colleague and friend. It's wonderful to be in this beautiful room looking at these inspiring portraits and to know that Sheila's portrait will be adorning these walls as well. Yes, at Arnold and Porter, we take pride in encouraging our lawyers to participate in civic institutions like the Bar Association, because we know that that kind of engagement makes our profession stronger and our system of justice better. And Sheila has lived that her entire career. She has devoted enormous energy to making our profession better, to making it more inclusive, to making it more equitable, and to making it more humane. Whether it's mentoring younger lawyers, serving as a role model for so many, or leading institutions like this one, the New York City Bar, she has spent decades opening doors and providing opportunities for people. Early in her career, she started one of the first diversity committees and ombuds programs of any law firm in the country. Since then, she's continued to mentor, teach, and lead with an unwavering focus on fairness and opportunity. Here are some things our colleagues recently shared with me about Sheila. One colleague said, "Sheila is a fierce advocate for the firm's pro bono program and its clients. She is a cheerleader for all attorneys who take on pro bono matters and is an inspiration to our younger lawyers." Someone else said, "Sheila is so warm and friendly that it is impossible not to feel cheerful around her. Her cheer is infectious and a great morale booster for all around her." One more. Someone said, "What stands out most about Sheila isn't her many well-deserved honors. It's how she makes people feel seen and supported." And her influence extends far beyond our law firm. As president of the New York City Bar and through her work with countless other legal organizations, she has strengthened the institutions that serve the public good. At Arnold and Porter, we are so proud of the values that Sheila's work reflects. She's an advocate for diversity, for professionalism, and for justice. And those are values that benefit all of us, and not just our clients and not just the legal community. So Sheila, every time someone walks by your portrait, they will be reminded of your professionalism and of your leadership with service, and we are so proud and so grateful that we get to work with you.
Thanks, Ellen. And kudos to you and the firm for letting Sheila take the time away from her caseload and the paying clients to do this work. So thank you very much. So it is amazing to think about all Sheila's accomplished in her day job as a top-notch big law firm litigator. Even more impressive is what she's done as a public service leader for the New York City Bar Association and countless other organizations. Many of her accomplishments on both fronts are in the program, so I'm not going to go through them. But let me take you back to December 2019. Sheila had been nominated to become the first woman of color president of the New York City Bar Association, and this dynamic leader was poised to take the reins. She was so ready for this moment. Her record of service left little doubt that she would be an amazing president. She didn't get there overnight. Sheila joined the City Bar over 3 decades ago, and among the many roles she has held, she has served on or led the City Bar's Recruitment and Retention of Lawyers Committee, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, the Nominating Committee, and of course, the Board of Directors, which used to be known as the Executive Committee. I also first met Sheila at a Recruitment and Retention of Lawyers 1L event. It was 2013. It was lunch in the reception area. It was during my early days as Executive Director of the City Bar, and I was blown away by her energy and optimism. I thought to myself, I had the coolest job in the world. I later learned that she was the captain of her high school cheerleading team and the daughter of a Baptist minister, so it all makes sense now. So in December 2019, when she was nominated to become president, I was so excited to be able to work with her. And how fitting that the City Bar was about to celebrate its 150th anniversary just a few months later in February 2020. We were planning the presidential transition, and then in March 2020, COVID shut down the world. We closed the building. We went remote. There was a pool about how quickly I would choke up. So this is a little earlier than I expected. We went remote and people were sick and dying. So Sheila assumed the presidency on May 19th. And at the annual meeting that night, conducted by Zoom, she didn't start her speech by talking about law or policy. She started talking about people. This is quoting Sheila that night. If you are scared and are anxious, I wish you peace and courage. If you or someone you love is battling the virus, I wish you and them a speedy recovery. She called out the names of 2 close people who had died from COVID. And she said if people remembered only one thing from her remarks, she hoped that it was that during those challenging times, the City Bar would become the bar of hope. Now I got her crying. That remains one of the most watched YouTube videos from the City Bar of all time. Now, she laid out 6 issues she wanted us to pursue as the pillars of her tenure as president: COVID-19 recovery, access to justice, criminal justice reform, diversity, equity, inclusion, protection of the rule of law, and mental health and wellness. How relevant these remain 5 years later. Things didn't get better for quite some time. The pandemic raged on. Our estimated building reopening date shifted further down the road, and 6 days after the annual meeting, George Floyd was murdered. Sheila was undeterred. Holding committee chair meetings by Zoom, she discussed the 6 pillars and created community on the screen. She gave remarks at virtual events, programs, and CLEs, sometimes recording multiple videos in a day. Sheila's energy and optimism were palpable, even through a computer monitor. Despite the challenges in the summer of 2020, under Sheila's leadership and with the work of our incredible staff and volunteer members, the City Bar issued numerous reports and was mentioned in nearly 70 news stories just in that summer between June and August of 2020. That work continued during the 2 years of her presidency, and you'll hear a little more about that in a bit, but it was truly a remarkable effort. The City Bar presidents are deeply involved in everything we do. A number of them are here tonight. And for 2 years, I had the pleasure of speaking or emailing with Sheila almost every day. I learned so much from her about life, about law, and most importantly, the importance of caring for others and taking the time to personally connect with family, friends, and colleagues. She mentored so many people. She always remembered to give thanks, and the City Bar staff and volunteers truly deserved it, as they especially came together during the pandemic president's term. She did this all while facing her own personal and professional challenges. Her strength and courage in the face of adversity inspire me and so many others. I will always be grateful to you. I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to her husband, Jerome. And if I didn't, he'd give a shout out anyway. In that annual meeting speech, she referred to him as her ride or die partner, and they are a formidable team. It's so fitting that Sheila's portrait will hang in this building, serving as a reminder of what it means to be a leader and that all are welcome here. I'm so grateful that Sheila's portrait will be on display for the years to come, in case we ever need to be reminded that, if nothing else, we are the Bar of Hope. Thank you. So it is now my great pleasure to introduce the Chief Judge of the New York State Court System and the Court of Appeals, the Honorable Judge Rowan Wilson.
Thank you, Bret, and thank you, everybody, for being here this evening, and good evening to you all. Sheila, thank you for your service as president of the Bar of the Association of the City of New York, and congratulations on the unveiling of your beautiful portrait. I've been thinking a lot about portraits over the last year. In August, Judge Al Rosenblatt, formerly of the Court of Appeals, sat with me in the Court of Appeals courtroom, which is ringed with portraits of former judges of the court. We filmed a discussion about the history of many of those judges, using the portraits as the jumping-off point for the discussion. The final video isn't ready yet, but I am looking forward to seeing it and sharing it with the public and with all of you. But it was really nearly a year before that when I really began thinking about the portraits in the courtroom. A group of middle school students from the Nyack area came, and they watched arguments, and before arguments I met with them and did sort of a little question and answer with them. And one middle school boy raised his hand when it was question time, and he had a question. And his question was, why are the only people of color and women on the back of the courtroom? Now, the answer was because the most recently retired judges go on the back and we fill around, but that started me thinking about the portraits. And a project we have underway, led by Senior Associate Judge Jenny Rivera, is to rearrange the portraits so that people will see different people in different places, and they can look forward and perhaps see a woman or a person of color, so that the lawyers and the audience won't always have their backs to some of us. I've also been thinking about the portraits there because there is only one judge of the New York State Court of Appeals who has no portrait in our courthouse. He happens to be the first African-American judge to sit on the Court of Appeals. And he was also the first African-American judge to be the presiding justice of the appellate division anywhere in the state. He was the presiding justice of the first department. His name is Harold Stevens. Why he has no portrait is a mystery. When he was presiding justice of the first department, Governor Wilson, not a relation of mine, appointed him to fill that vacancy, which occurred when Judge Breitel was elected chief judge. Back then, the judges on the court stood for statewide election, and so then there was a spot, and the governor filled the spot until the next election. That was in 1974. Judge Stevens ran for election and lost, though he did serve for a year as a judge on our highest court. There are other judges on the court, though, with equally similar circumstances and short stays, and they all have portraits. So to remedy that, we've commissioned a portrait of Judge Stevens and expect to unveil it this February during Black History Month. Judge Stevens has no surviving family, best as we can tell, so the portrait is not for them, but for the public, so that they might look at it and wonder what it must have been like to be Judge Harold Stevens in 1974. To be the presiding justice of the Appellate Division First Department, to be handpicked by the governor of New York State to sit on the Court of Appeals, and to have the people of New York vote for someone else. The word portrait comes from the old French word portrait, to meaning to draw, paint, or portray. Literally translated, the word means to draw forth. Traire means to draw, and pour means forth. The Old French traire comes directly from the Latin traere, which means to draw, but not in the painting sense. It means to bring something forward, like to draw a sword from its scabbard, or to draw a horse to draw a cart or carriage. The etymology is important. When we go to a museum and we look at art, we're often thinking about the artist's skill, style, or vision, sometimes even what was going on in the artist's life or in the world at the time. But with portraits, our purpose should be different. Portraits should reveal or draw forth something deeper essence about the subject and the time in which the subject of the portrait lived. Portraits don't preserve a moment in time. They reveal how we see ourselves, how others see us, and the roles we believe they do play and that we do or should play in this world. Museums sometimes provide information about the subject of a portrait to give the viewer background that might aid in drawing forth the essence of the person depicted. The world's most famous portrait, the Mona Lisa, is Da Vinci's representation of Lisa del Giocondo. Madame del Giocondo was a Florentine woman who married a silk merchant at the age of 15, gave birth to 6 children, 4 of whom lived past childbirth. She herself lived into her early 60s. No one knows who commissioned the painting or why Da Vinci chose to paint a merchant's wife, or why that portrait was one of the very few things he took with him when he left Italy for France. Some art historians believe that Madame del Giocondo sat for the portrait after having experienced both the joy of parenthood and the grief of losing a child. Her portrait has become an object of cultural fascination, perhaps for the softness and depth of the brushstrokes, or for Mona Lisa's enigmatic expression and responsive gaze, or perhaps because its ambiguity, is she smiling or not, is she happy or sad, or both, allows us, the viewer, to bring part of themselves into our interpretation of her. When each of you views, admires, and interprets Sheila Boston's portrait, it may help you draw forth meaning by considering some of Sheila's background. As you've heard, Sheila was the first woman of color to serve as president of the City Bar. The City Bar, by the way, is the oldest existing bar association in the United States, 1 year older than the State Bar Association of New York. When Sheila was asked to lead the City Bar, she hesitated because of her heavy workload at Arnold and Porter and her many civic commitments, but in her words, "It did not escape me that this was a historic moment as well, and I would be the first woman of color in the role in the association's history. By all indications, it seemed like divine providence that I had to do this." Being the first at anything has the potential to create pressure to excel, pressure that can be both internally and externally created. Compounding that challenge, Sheila's tenure began, as you heard, alongside the COVID pandemic. Imagine the incompatibility of running an organization that fundamentally depends on building interpersonal relationships when suddenly in-person interaction was unsafe. Sheila's tenure as president also overlapped with the explosion of the Black Lives Matter movement upon, as you heard, the killing of George Floyd. Her presidency required her to thoughtfully navigate the fact that she is married to a retired New York State trooper in the face of protests to defund the police alongside both the Black Lives Matter movement and the responsive choruses of All Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter. As Sheila explained at the time, there is systemic racism and unconscious bias, but the police have an important job to do. They need better training and must learn how to de-escalate situations, and I'm excited that people are now seriously talking about solutions. When you think about the challenges that Sheila faced as president, a truly unparalleled conflagration of extraordinary events, one might doubt Sheila's conclusion that divine providence would have placed her or anyone in that situation. But her reference to divine providence reminded me of the first time I heard her give a speech. For an instant, I thought I was in church. I now know, at least in part, why. Her late father was the Reverend Louis J. Boston, who passed away just a few months ago. Although Reverend Boston delivered his first sermon at age 17, he also spent 25 years in the U.S. Army, rising to the rank of lieutenant colonel and receiving the Bronze Star as well as numerous other medals. I tell you this very little about a man with an amazing life because I know it will help you draw Sheila's person from her portrait when you see it. Not only was Reverend Boston a man of great faith and fortitude, but among his favorite television programs were Perry Mason, Matlock, Columbo, and Murder, She Wrote, which may explain why Sheila wound up as a lawyer. Indeed, the faith and fortitude she inherited, and which she finds gloriously reflected in her trooper-turned-minister husband, the Reverend Jerome Robinson, explains why it may well be by divine providence that Sheila was given the task of guiding the city bar at an unprecedentedly difficult time, and why she succeeded so divinely. Corinthians 10:13 is sometimes interpreted to mean that God will challenge each of us mightily on occasions, but never with more than we are able to bear. At first blush, the law and portraiture may seem like sharply distinct disciplines, yet both share a deep concern for capturing and communicating truth. The law through logically structured language, and portraiture through visual imagery. Both rely on framing. The judicial writing and the painted portraits select, emphasize, reshape, and idealize certain aspects of reality. Both seek to draw on inherent truths about human nature by focusing on the instant litigant or subject. In addition, both the law and portraiture evoke questions about who has the power to define truth, to speak for another, or to determine what constitutes a just and accurate representation. They are parallel forms of cultural authorship, shaping how individuals are perceived and remembered, and how that perception and remembrance influences the present and the future. It is why rearranging the portraits at the Court of Appeals matters. It is why creating Judge Harold Stevens' portrait matters. It is why Sheila Boston's portrait matters. In the most famous book about a portrait, The Picture of Dorian Gray, Oscar Wilde wrote, "Every portrait that is painted with feeling is a portrait of the artist, not the sitter. The sitter is merely the accident, the occasion. It is not he who is revealed by the painter, it is rather the painter who, on colored canvas, reveals himself." I don't think Oscar Wilde was entirely right. The sitter is not the accident, and a painter attempts to reveal the sitter. Yes, the portrait is the artist's representation of the truth, but when we learn about a subject and study the portrait through our own eyes, with reference to both the time of the subject's life and the present day, a portrait allows us to determine how the truth we see matters in our own time, to our own lives, unfettered by whatever vision the artist may have had. That we cannot know what Da Vinci wished to represent in the Mona Lisa does not diminish our ability to determine its meaning to us today. The paintbrush, then, is figuratively in our hands. Sheila's presidency of the City Bar was historic, not only because she is the first woman of color to lead the City Bar, but because she also led it through an extraordinary, unprecedented time with extraordinary care and aplomb. The greatest lesson we learned from the pandemic is that we are all inextricably bound together, that no one is an island, that the tide rises and falls for all of us. Despite, or perhaps because of, the various turmoils raging during her presidency, Sheila nicknamed the bar of hope, as the invitation for this portrait unveiling notes. We now find ourselves at a momentous point in our constitutional democracy. I was graced with a sneak peek at Julia Bottom's lovely portrait of Sheila, which you will all see shortly. When I study it, I see her faith and fortitude in the face of novel and daunting obstacles. I see her life of service, of prioritizing collective safety and public freedoms over individual comfort or political expediency. I see the bar of hope. What truths you will take from it lies in the paintbrush of your imagination, but whatever it is, I trust it will lead you to draw on the values espoused in Sheila's leadership as we go about making vital decisions about who we are and the roles we play in our city, our state, nation, and in our world. Thank you and congratulations again.
So it would not be church without a musical selection. So would Reed Harris Butts please come up?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Reed Harris Butts, and I will be singing Make Them Hear You from Ragtime, a song that I think is very fitting for today's event. And I know that my grandfather is smiling down and very proud of you today. Go out and tell our story. Let it echo far and wide. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. How justice was our battle and how justice was denied. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. And say to those who blame us for the way we chose to fight, that sometimes there are battles that are more than black or white. And I would not put down my sword when justice was my right. Make them hear you. Go out and tell our story to your daughters and your sons. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. And tell them in our struggle we were not the only ones. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. Your sword can be a sermon or the power of the pen. Teach every child to raise his voice, and then, my brothers, then will justice be demanded by 10 million righteous men. Make them hear you. When they hear you, I'll be near you. Oh,
Short speaker. There we go. Thank you. I want to know who decided I was going to go after the chief judge. And that lovely, thank you, beautiful performance. I can't wait to see Ragtime, which I'm going to see soon. Wow, thank you. Thank you, Sheila. Okay, so I am Maria Salenti. I was the senior policy counsel here at the City Bar until 2024. I worked very closely with Sheila during her presidency, which was an enormous privilege. During that 2-year period, Sheila and our committees released over 300 reports and statements addressing issues of the day, and using Sheila's 6 pillars, which you heard about from Bret, as our North Star. I cannot overstate how prescient it was for Sheila to provide those pillars. During a time of incredible upheaval, they really did ground us and the work. I'm so honored to be part of the team that is here to paint a picture, so to speak, of how special Sheila is. For my part, I will be talking about some of the key policy issues and challenges during Sheila's time as president, and the unique brand of leadership she brought to those challenges. I do apologize in advance if, like Bret, I get a little emotional. It was a stressful, anxious, and emotional time. Working alongside our committees, we tried to take in the news and then deploy the City Bar's voice as quickly and effectively as possible, which is what our members rightfully expected. Writing this definitely stirred up memories. It also reminded me of how much we all leaned on each other and how demanding it was for Sheila especially. The challenges are already mentioned, easily recalled: COVID and its horrifying health impacts, the shutdowns, police violence, Black Lives Matter protests, and the government response to those protests, unprecedented threats to the rule of law and voting rights, an attempt to overturn the results of the 2020 election, threats against public officials, and the violent breach of the Capitol on January 6th. And that was Sheila's first year. Which shocked me when I was writing this. I was like, wow, that really was just her first year. Although the repercussions continued well into her second. I don't want this to be a laundry list of events that we all experienced. Rather, I hope to convey why Sheila's leadership was so instrumental, and how she created an environment in which the City Bar could boldly speak out, educate, advocate, and be heard. So here's the spoiler alert about Sheila. As you might imagine, she responded to each urgent and consequential issue with courage, leadership, keen intelligence, grace, and yes, hope. You've heard a lot about the hope. Looking back, I see clearly how Sheila's hope permeated all of our work during that time. Even in her most forceful condemnations, Sheila's voice rang with the hope that we could do better. Reckon with the past and envision a better future, she said in one of her programs. I struggled a bit with how to fully describe the particular quality that Sheila brings to even the most stressful and controversial of issues. Some might call it holding two conflicting thoughts at once, which is close, but that's not exactly right, because it feels static to me. In the end, it's an important skill, but it felt static to me. It didn't feel exactly right. So in the end, the best I could come up with was this, partly taken from the first rule of improv: yes, and. And by the way, I came up with that analogy well before the New York Times piece on Josh Shapiro, which some of you, which I read yesterday and could not believe that they used that phrase to describe Governor Shapiro. And I said, oh, everyone's going to think I took that from the piece. I didn't. I thought of that before. Sheila has an incredible way. So what does that mean? How do I describe this? Sheila has an incredible way of holding true to her bedrock values and beliefs, describing her point of view honestly and forcefully, but at the same time, she makes it clear that other voices and perspectives are always in the mix, and the goal is to aim high. By modeling this, she urges us to engage in multidimensional and forward-thinking ways. In other words, holding true to one's values, as important as that is, doesn't mean you have all the answers. But practicing humility, inclusivity, honesty, and hope is our best chance of getting there together. So in partnership with our committees, and I know some of you here, and I wish I had time to name them all, but I don't, I'm sorry, and with Bret and with our Director of Communications, Eric Friedman, in the back over there, and with so many other City Bar staff, who I also don't have time to name, I'm sorry, Sheila tackled the urgent and challenging policy issues of the day in an entirely new remote environment. I'm just going to give some highlights here. I wish I could talk about all of them, but I can't. Starting with COVID, you've heard Sheila referred to as our pandemic president. In that capacity, Sheila inspired our policy work in two ways. First, she urged our committees to closely follow and speak out on how COVID was impacting lawyers, their practices, and their clients. But she remained laser focused as well on the impacts being felt by New York City's most vulnerable communities. Second, Sheila wanted productive conversations. She did not shy away from calling attention to problems where they existed, but she also believed the City Bar was well positioned to work with institutions to develop solutions and help establish standards for standards for operating virtually and then reopening. This was particularly important when it came to the court system. A few examples. We issued dozens of reports concerning the impact of COVID closures and virtual proceedings on litigants, particularly those who were survivors of abuse, those not able to make rent, those trying to obtain child support, and those without counsel. We spoke in favor of early vaccinations for incarcerated people and facility staff, and for judges, lawyers, and support staff who were required to appear in court proceedings despite widespread shutdowns elsewhere. We made recommendations for how to address children in family court aging out of foster care during COVID. And we continued our call for a truly independent immigration court system, one untethered from the Department of Justice. Regarding the mental health impacts of COVID, Sheila encouraged and supported our Committee on Mindfulness and Well-Being as they created programming and toolkits that could assist members and their families. She encouraged members and staff to reach out to our Lawyers Assistance Program for help when needed. She supported the City Bar Justice Center as they quickly expanded free legal services to New Yorkers impacted by COVID. And she created a presidential series program called Raising the Bar of Hope as a way to showcase diverse voices. As you heard from everyone before me, Sheila cared deeply about how everyone was doing. Lastly, alongside the City Bar Justice Center, we confronted the lack of internet in homeless shelters, particularly in children and family shelters. With Sheila's support, we worked with other groups to launch an advocacy campaign called Wi-Fi for Homeless. And indeed, change did come. On the criminal justice front, Sheila wanted the City Bar to continue engaging with the New York State Legislature about the need for further criminal justice reform. She talked frankly with committees and City Bar members about, and the Chief Judge referenced this as well, about her son and husband having law enforcement backgrounds, and that she was not anti-police. But she believed deeply that reform was needed across the criminal justice system, and we released several reports advocating for change with the help of our criminal justice committees and mass incarceration task force. In a presidential series program, Sheila organized and moderated about the dire need for police reform to address systemic racism and unconscious bias. She opened the program by saying the names and condemning the deaths of several Black and brown individuals who had died due to police use of force. And she showed a picture of each of them, ending with George Floyd. She said she wanted the audience to understand why the protests were happening, why people were so angry and upset. The program included representatives from both law enforcement and human rights groups and was focused on solutions. Sheila concluded her opening remarks by underscoring the opportunity for fruitful discussion. Real talk, she said, and by quoting Senator Cory Booker when he said, "Hope confronts." The summer of 2020 was deeply contentious time, with COVID raging on, closure and masked debates, protests across the country, and it was a test of our First Amendment rights. In response to the government's use of force against peaceful protesters at Lafayette Square, and with the help of our Rule of Law Task Force, Sheila made sure the City Bar spoke out, saying, quote, "The deployment of such extreme and violent measures against innocent civilians exercising rights guaranteed in the Constitution, and particularly the ostentatious militarization of the display of force, raises profound questions." She urged the inspectors general to investigate. On to the fall of 2020 in attempts to thwart the 2020 election results. In numerous writings and appearances, Sheila urged everyone, especially lawyers, to pay attention to what was happening, to speak out in support of the right to vote and the independence of our elections, to support our judges and election workers, and to participate, do something that fulfills our civic duty to talk about and protect the rule of law. Sheila sounded the alarm about the lasting damage caused by the unrelenting efforts to sow doubt about the results of the 2020 election. Under her leadership, we condemned the violent breach of the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, urged immediate certification of the election results, and as court challenges to the election results were filed and dismissed, Sheila made sure to thank the judges handling those cases, saying, quote, "They deserve our respect and gratitude for performing their functions with principle, integrity, and speed." Sheila also made sure to express our gratitude to the election officials who continue to perform their duties despite threats against their safety. And regarding lawsuits challenging the election results, Sheila courageously called out the lawyers bringing those cases. She acknowledged, of course, the duty to represent controversial clients, but cautioned, quote, "To the extent lawyers have filed election challenge cases that lack any plausible basis in law or fact, as many judges are finding, then the public is justified in believing that such cases were filed primarily to cast doubt on the legitimacy of the election. This does a regrettable disservice to our profession's commitment to the rule of law." End quote. Voting rights remained a top priority for Sheila, working closely with our election law committee. She was the first to sign our City Bar Lawyers Pledge, vowing to do her part to protect democracy, the rule of law, and free and fair elections. Whenever she could, Sheila urged other lawyers to follow her lead. True to her word, Sheila delivered remarks at the ABA's 2022 mid-year meeting in support of 2 resolutions aimed at protecting the right to vote. She rejected the partisan label, saying, quote, "How is it partisan to defend and unburden the right to vote and to make sure that our election administration processes remain nonpartisan and independent? And then who will defend this fundamental right if not us, if not the lawyers? My beloved colleagues, this should not be controversial," end quote. Deep breath. That's Sheila. I am at my time. I recognize that this walk down memory lane may have stirred up things we find hard to think about. And perhaps our walk feels more like a circle than a straight line. But for my part, I find so much inspiration and guidance in Sheila's words and deeds while she steered this ship. With the roadmap she has given us, I hope each of us will continue to carry forward her important message. Tend to our democracy. Take seriously our duties as lawyers, care for each other, and proceed with courage, humility, inclusivity, and hope. For that message, Sheila, we all thank you.
Good evening. Wow, it's really hard to be the last one before the portrait unveiling. So my name is Lorraine McGowan, and I'm a partner at Orr, Carrington, and Sutcliffe here in New York. And it is truly an honor and a privilege to stand before you today as we unveil the portrait of Sheila Boston, my sister, friend, colleague, and the 69th president of the New York City Bar Association. I had the privilege of serving alongside Sheila as one of her vice presidents and as a board member during her historic tenure. Sheila is more than a leader, as you've heard. She is a mentor, a sponsor, and a force for good in our profession and in our community. I often marvel at how she manages to do all that she does, always with passion, commitment, and joy. And let me tell you, it is very hard. It's impossible to say no to Sheila. She asks with such a big smile that you find yourself wanting to be part of her vision. As you have heard, Sheila's presidency was historic, not only because she was the first woman of color to lead the city bar in its 150-year history, but she also took the helm during one of the most challenging times in our lives, COVID-19. Offices were closing. We were all learning how to work remotely, and the future felt uncertain. Yet Sheila, often affectionately called the pandemic president, rose to the occasion. I remember our Zoom meetings, Sheila always with the City Bar Library as her background, keeping us focused and connected. Nothing seemed to faze her. As you've heard, Sheila's leadership was defined by 6 pillars: COVID-19 recovery projects, mental health and wellness, access to justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion, criminal justice reform, and safeguarding the rule of law. Each pillar reflected not just the needs of our profession then and now, but Sheila's personal values and lived experience. As president, she challenged each of us as board members to identify a project or initiative that we would personally undertake and lead in order to expand the City Bar's membership and programs and impact. Each of us took on a program that was consistent with Sheila's 6 pillars, and this approach energized the board and broadened our reach. Sheila didn't just focus on existing programs and members, she inspired us to innovate and to make a real impact. Many of those programs, including mine, continue today. One of the areas where Sheila's vision truly shone was to her commitment to pipeline initiatives. You've heard Muhammad talk about when he first met her. She spent significant time developing programs focused on New York high school and elementary students, college students, law students, encouraging them to consider a career in the law. She understood that the future of our profession depends on reaching young people early, opening doors, and showing them what is possible. And her efforts were not limited to the United States or to law students and junior associates in New York. Sheila's reach is global. She has been an active participant in the City Bar's Vance Center for International Justice and its African Fellows Program. She has taken time to participate in programs in South Africa, and she personally mentors and sponsors the fellows when they arrive in the United States, in New York. What's more, she follows up with them and checks on them to see how they are doing when they return to Africa. Sheila's commitment to nurturing talent and fostering diversity and inclusion knows no boundaries. Let me share a personal story that captures Sheila's spirit. At one of our bar events, I watched as Sheila noticed an attorney sitting alone. She walked over, introduced herself, and genuinely listened to the attorney's story. Then, rather than moving on, Sheila took her by the hand and introduced her to others, building connections and community in real time. That's Sheila. She meets everyone where they are, makes them feel seen, and brings them into the fold. If you've ever served on a panel with Sheila, you know she doesn't talk about herself. Instead, she highlights the accomplishments of her fellow panelists, making sure everyone shines. As a leader, Sheila engages in real, candid conversations, sharing both successes and failures so that others feel empowered to be their authentic selves. As you have heard, Sheila's impact goes far beyond the City Bar. She is a leader at her firm, where she is a litigation partner and a recognized global thought leader. She serves as vice president of the Federal Bar Council, is active in the National Bar Association, has been appointed by New York's governor and chief judge to serve on important judicial committees. She is also an passionate advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion, receiving numerous awards, which I won't mention now. But what really sets Sheila apart is her empathy, her charisma, her curiosity, humility, and her unwavering commitment to lifting others as she climbs. She is all in. When she makes a commitment, she follows through until the mission is accomplished, and then to ask what more can be done. And I would be remiss not to mention that Sheila is a woman of deep faith and a leader in her church. She often refers to herself as a preacher's daughter. And she is also the daughter of a highly decorated and honored Army colonel. I know that Reverend Boston is looking down, smiling as we celebrate her daughter. Sheila's commitment to service may be in part because she is both a preacher's daughter and a product of a military upbringing. She brings discipline, compassion, and a sense of higher purpose to everything she does. What is truly remarkable about Sheila is that no matter how busy she is, she always goes out of her way to help others. Sheila has been there to assist those who are caring for family members, including elderly parents who are ill, even when she herself and her family have faced challenges, elderly parents, and personal losses. I experienced this firsthand. I didn't expect to do this. I lost my mom at the beginning of this year. And despite Sheila's incredibly busy schedule and her own family's challenges, she found the time to attend my mom's arrangements in another city, a place she had never been. Her presence and support meant the world to me, and it's just one example of the countless ways Sheila shows up for others. I have known Sheila for nearly 20 years, and I am constantly inspired by her energy and her heart. Whether it's mentoring young attorneys, leading diversity initiatives, or developing pathways for future leaders, Sheila is always working to make our profession and our world better. Today, as we unveil her portrait, we celebrate not just her accomplishments and her achievements, but her legacy, a legacy of leadership, inclusion, faith, and service. Sheila, thank you for showing us what is possible when we lead with purpose and compassion. Congratulations, my friend. The honor is so well deserved.
Get ready, get ready, get ready. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure to do a special task this evening. Now, I'm a storyteller. To do it justice, and I know y'all like that word, I'm going to raise the bar and hope that I put everything in proper context so you can feel what I'm feeling. Are you ready? Here we go. Now, before I became a minister, I was a New York State trooper, and almost daily I came in contact with many celebrities and famous people. But when I was a New York State trooper, I was in the prime of my life. Now, let me do this. I'm going to make all of you artists tonight. Paint this picture in your mind. I was a bodybuilder, and you know, I look really good in that uniform. I mean, let's face it. A good-looking, freckled face, red hair, bodybuilding, good-looking in my New York State Police. People respect that uniform. And don't forget the Stetson hat on my head. Are you painting the portrait? Or are you trying to make a sculpture? Anyway, the late Prince had a song that said, "Baby, I'm a star." And I was a star. And I came in contact with a lot of stars, celebrities, politicians, and famous people. But because I was who I was, I didn't get starstruck. Now, later on after retirement, I was in South Africa as a non-official member of the New York City Bar Association through its Cyrus R. Vance Center for International Justice African League Fellows Program. Now, not being an official member of the team, I got to pick and choose the things I participated in. So when everyone was in those meetings, I had plenty of meeting-free time on my hands. Now, one day I was walking in the market area of Johannesburg, and there was a large squad of police guarding a set of limos and police vehicles. Now, I pulled out my ID because I wanted to, make sure I enjoyed my freedom time. And I asked, who's inside? My ID got me up close and personal. And this big officer said, Mandiba. And I said, whoa, Nelson Mandela is in there somewhere? And I waited for like an hour for him to come out, but he never did. So I left. Now, a couple of years later, Sheila and I got an invitation to attend the official inaugural ball of President Barack and First Lady Michelle Obama. Now, yeah, I know there were 10 of them, but we were at the main one, y'all. And I wore a black tux. But since I'm a star, I was going to do it my way. And I wore a white tie. And by the way, I was looking good in my formal dress uniform. And guess what? President Barack Obama had on a black tux and a white tie just like me. And at one point, he got close enough to see that I had on a white tie and said, looking good. And I said, whoa. Barack Obama said that I'm looking good. I mean, I knew that, but for the president to validate it, that was cool. Now, those were 2 times in my life where I got starstruck. But when I found out that the person who was painting Sheila's portrait is the same artist that painted the portrait of President Barack Obama I saw displayed on a wall at the Harvard Club just down the street, my imaginative, innovative, creative, and original mind started working. Y'all, I instantly came to the conclusion that this woman painted portraits of 2 black presidents that can be seen on West 44th Street in the biggest city in the United States of America. In buildings that are architectural monuments, which are both priceless, and New York City, New York State, and national landmarks. Now, I don't even think Elon Musk could buy this building if he wanted to. But when I heard Julia Bottoms had painted Sheila's portrait, I said, whoa. I was so happy for Sheila because, in my opinion, this woman painted America's best president and New York City Bar's best president. President Maldonado, I see you. That's my opinion. Don't worry about it. Let it go. Because, ladies and gentlemen, after you look upon the portrait this extremely talented artist created, you too might end up tonight saying, whoa. I present to you, and even you, the artist, Julia Bottoms. Come on down.
I'm just getting here so I can get a better look. Oh. No. lift it up. So there will be plenty of time for pictures afterwards, but if I give to you Sheila S. Boston.
Pretty. Thank you. Thank you. Oh. Bless you all, please. Boss Bret, how much time do I have? What time is it?
Whatever time you need.
Good evening. Woo! I feel good. My heart is full. First, can we give it up one more time for Julia Bottoms, y'all? I was determined, because this was historic, to have a Black female artist. And it took me a while to find her, but God bless you. And she's awesome. She's just awesome. From Buffalo, and I'll tell you a little more about her in a second. But this is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. My name is Sheila Boston, the pandemic president. First, I do have to thank God. God is good. And I must say, it was always my custom as president to say, I wrote it down because I said this almost every speech, and I mean it. I hope that every single one of you, under the sound of my voice, because we were virtual, is healthy and well in mind, body, and spirit. I have to tell you that being the president of this august association has been one of the greatest privileges and honors of my life. And to think, I almost didn't accept the nomination, y'all. You just don't know. Bret doesn't know either. I talked to just a few people, very close-knit group. And I think the ones that had the greatest impact on me, frankly, were three people, and I got to give them shout-outs. So you know my ride or die, Jerome Robinson. What some people may not know is my dear sister, whom I love, Loretta Lynch. And someone who I guess is not here tonight, but I love him dearly. He was the former chair of our firm, Arnold and Porter. His name is Richard Alexander. So why was I possibly going to say no? I had just finished 2 major trials. I was feeling good. I was on a little bit of a high. The trajectory of my law career seemed great. And I was afraid if I took time out, I wouldn't be able to try some more cases. Bret, I was afraid it would mess with my profession and things that were going on, my book of business. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And also, at the time was when my mother's health was really rapidly declining. And we didn't know if she'd live the next day. So I was really torn about that decision. I wasn't sure if I could handle everything, but Jerome kept saying, I got you. Loretta, you reminded me who my people are and that nothing is impossible with God. Richard, who was chair of the firm at the time, he reminded me of the history of our great firm, Arnold and Porter. How many of our colleagues have selflessly rendered public service. And he told me, you're gonna be all right.
So I accepted, Bret. One of the best decisions of my life, but little did I know. COVID-19 hit us. It was rough, y'all. People were frightened, confused, depressed, even paralyzed in many ways. And with a lot of prayer and meditation, and yes, even focus group discussions, I decided on those 6 pillars you've heard about. And it came to me, what do we need most right now? Hope. It just kept coming in my spirit, Bret. And that's why I had to name this place the Association of the City of New York, the Bar of Hope. And Julia, thank you. I told you I was hoping you could somehow incorporate it. It's beautiful. Thank you so much. Quickly, we are one of, if not the oldest, bar associations in the country. The New York City Bar Association has over 24,000 members, and it is dedicated to equipping and mobilizing a diverse legal profession to practice with excellence, promote reform of the law or needed changes, to uphold the rule of law and access to justice, and to do these things in support of a fair society and the public interest in our community, our nation, and throughout the world. That is the mission of the Bar of Hope. We have over 150 committees, right? These committees and subgroups address all different kinds of law. We say from A to Z, wherever Martha is. A for animal law, Z for zoning laws. You want it, we've got it. The City Bar has a rich history. It was formed in 1870 in response to growing public concern over corruption in the justice system in New York City. Several of our early City Bar officers were active in seeking the removal of corrupt judges. Watch out, Judge Wilson. And in leading prosecutions of the notorious Tweed Ring at that time. Now, by the 1960s, the City Bar became an increasingly democratic organization, easing restrictions on membership and actively engaging in social issues. We were, and still aren't perfect, granted. We have an imperfect history. But we're doing all we can to improve, evolve, and get better. So I am beyond honored to have been the first woman of color president and the 5th woman president of this illustrious organization. But I want you to understand something. And my husband keeps telling me this and reminds me, tonight's bigger than me. Let's be clear. There are other very talented women of color in this audience right here and throughout this city and throughout the country. I just happen to be fortunate enough to be the one to represent. And I just pray that I did it well. I gotta share with you really quickly how I know it's bigger than us. There was a woman who came to me. It was shortly after we opened the building again. And she came to me and she hugged me and she cried. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, I just saw your picture. I don't know if you know, when you walk into the doors of the City Bar, to the left-hand side, we have the picture of the president and all of the members of the board, the executive board, now board of directors. And she said, I looked up there, Sheila, and she's like, I've come into this building so many times. And it's so formal. She felt it was cold. I don't, but you know, that's how she felt, and that's cool. She's like, but seeing your face up there, she's like, I felt on top of the world. I felt like I belong here. I felt. Is Conrad here? There you are, right in front of me. Please stand up. So, y'all, this is Conrad Harper, and I want to thank him. This man was the first Black person of color, to serve as president of the New York City Bar Association. He was president 30 years before me. Sorry, I'm not trying to tell on your age or anything, but I'm just saying, it took us 30 years, but we got here, all right? And I want to salute Roger Maldonado, the first Latino president of the New York City Bar Association. Stand up. Now, I have other august presidents here. Dean Faridi, Susan Coleman, and I love you guys. Are there any other presidents in the house? Am I missing? Oh, God, how are you? It is so good. And I'm blanking. Carrie, and you know what? You were president when I'm not going to go with the years again. We'll leave that alone. Carrie Dunn. These are, please, all of you stand up. Past presidents of the New York City Bar Association. And then finally, I have to give a shout out to Barbara Paul Robinson. She was the first female president of the New York City Bar Association in 1994, a true trailblazer. Bret, you made me cry, so I'm not going to talk much about you. I love you. We talked 6 days a week for 2 years. I went through withdrawal symptoms for a little bit afterwards. Maria, we probably talked 4 days out of the week. Tough issues, we laughed, we cried. I love you. And there are others, and I can't call out all the names, forgive me, but these were the 2. My husband knew I had a work husband. You know. If you are a member of the City Bar staff, could you just please stand really quickly? Kurt. Tanya. It's a wonderful, wonderful group, and I miss you and I love you. Lauren Axelrod isn't here, General Counsel. Blessings to her, as her father recently passed. I can relate. Whew. Really quickly, my Princeton Tiger classmates, are the Princetonians in the house? Please stand up. Come on. All right, we got a few of them. If you're from Columbia Law School, including our dean, did he make it? Dean Abib? Yes, he's right there. Please stand up. Columbia Law. Columbia Law. All right. If you're a member of the ABWA, MBBA, National Bar Association, stand up. You're in the house. If you have been a member of the Arnold and Porter, Kaye Scholer, LLP family, stand up. If you are a member of my Abyssinian Baptist Church family, please stand up. All right, I think I covered all the groups. If you didn't stand up before, stand up right now. All right, bless you. Thank you for being here. My dearest friends, you know who you are. I'm not going to call out names, but thank you. I love you so much. Ron Jackson, I'm going to have to call one name out. Ron, please stand. I love you. For those of you who know how to pray, pray for my brother, Ron. We literally just funeralized his wife Saturday. And yet he saw fit. His wife was the secretary/church clerk for my dad for many years. So their family, Miss Esley's with Daddy now. But thank you for being here. I love you too. He's a lawyer too, by the way, y'all. Many thanks to my family. Family, stand up. I love you guys. Ariel and Rowan, wave your hands in the air because they don't know. These are my babies. These are my 2 babies. And your significant others, y'all can raise your hands too. You know I love you. Thank you, guys. You met baby brother. All right, I got to do one more special shout out. The nieces. Would you please? This is what I fight for. The next generation. Ella and Flora, turn around and show your beautiful faces to everybody. Come on. Almost done here. I have to say thank you to my life partner. What most of you don't know is that I'm grateful he's even alive. Within the last 18 months, he's had 4 surgeries. I didn't know if he'd make it here tonight. It's been a lot, y'all. I've had 2 sick parents and a spouse, but our vows, what is it? Through sickness and in health? But thank you, Jerome. You've always been there. You've always been supportive. I know it's hard to be married to me. I'm a lot. Finally, I just want to call out some names. First, I call out the name of Isabel, Dolores, Herndon, Boston in these hallowed halls. That's my mommy. 3 men who have always been very dear to me. First is Robert Van Rankin. He was my mentor, sponsor, friend. He's the reason I went to Princeton University. He actually interviewed me. I didn't even sign up for the daggone meeting to learn about Princeton. I had to keep him company while he was waiting for them, and turned out he interviewed me and ended up talking me into going to Princeton. And when I became president, he called me. I missed the call, but he left a message, and this is what he'd always do. Whenever he heard I had an achievement, he said, "Sheila, the bells of Nassau Hall are ringing for its daughter." That was his saying. God bless you, Robert Van Rankin. He's gone. I've lost these 3 people in the last 3 years. Second one, whose name I also have to call, Pastor Reverend Dr. Calvin Otis Butts III. He was looking forward to tonight, and so I assume he's here, right, Reed? He's here. And finally, I'm a daddy's girl, y'all, so this has been hard. I'm sorry. Pastor, Reverend, thank you, Wendy. Pastor, Reverend, Lieutenant Colonel Lewis James Boston. That is my daddy. Okay, finally, I wouldn't be a daddy's daughter if I didn't at least just quickly say, I'm concerned about miseducation, misinformation. We need more civic education. I was toasting the associates in our New York office who just passed the bar, and I was sharing with them, there's a lot of ignorance abounding, and I'm not saying that to be pejorative. I mean it in its true definitional sense. There's a study that says only 17% of Americans can actually name one of the 3 branches of government. We have work to do. I'm concerned about the mental health of lawyers, judges, those in the law profession. Research by the ABA indicates lawyers are the most depressed of 105 surveyed professions. And according to the National Institute of Mental Health, lawyers are nearly 5 times more likely than the general population to die by suicide. I'm concerned about DEI and belonging. That's what we say here in City Bar. Attempts to erase the history of the marginalized in this country. All lives need to matter. Whether a person of color, trans, immigrant, member of a religious minority in this country, when will we learn? United we stand, divided we fall. We have too much vitriolic political division. We've forgotten how to be civil to one another and respectable. We've forgotten how to disagree without being disagreeable. Some of us as lawyers have forgotten the oaths that we've taken to defend the U.S. Constitution and both federal and state laws. Some have lost their way in terms of being patriots and responsible and good citizens of this country. And I'm concerned about the rule of law. Why are we still talking about this now? 3 years ago, I kept talking about this. And I'm concerned about the mounting callousness and lack of empathy we show to one another. Brothers and sisters, speaking up is imperative. I asked Reed to sing that song for a reason. It was intentional. I'm asking all of you to stand up, speak up, let them hear you. Let them hear you. Let them hear you. We all must be held accountable. Thank you again. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the support you've given me through the years. God bless each and every one of you. And we've got work to do. Let them hear you. Thank you.
Is Reverend Wainwright here?
No one should ever have to follow Sheila Boston. But it is my task to prepare us to leave this place, but never ever the presence of the most gracious creator the world has ever known. Shall we pray? Gracious and everlasting creator, beloved community, as we stand before the portrait of Sheila Boston that is captured in time, a life poured out in service. Let us gather our hearts, let us gather our hopes, let us gather our shared commitment to justice. Today we honor Sheila Boston Robinson, a woman who walked into rooms not simply to be present, but to change what could be possible. Her leadership at the New York City Bar was not a title, it was a testimony that courage has a voice, that equity has advocates, that justice has champions, and that when a Black woman rises in dignity and excellence, whole systems must rise with her. This portrait is more than just paint and color. It is a story of a daughter who honored her roots, a lawyer who honored her oath, a leader who honored her community, a human being who honored the deep call to make this world more than just as it was found. As we prepare to depart, we carry forward the spirit she modeled, a spirit that listens with compassion across faiths, cultures, generations, and lived experiences, a spirit that speaks truth to power with humility and boldness, even when silence would want to enter and make it easier. A spirit that stands firm for justice, not out of anger alone, but out of love for humanity. A spirit that believes in possibility, even when history struggles and suggests otherwise. May the spirit of peace weave us together across differences, teaching us that shared humanity gives us the greatest strength. And may we leave this place committed in heart, mind, and action to build the kind of world that would be reflective of Sheila's spirit. Let her life lead us and move us with a new charge. Let her legacy be our lesson. Let her portrait be a reminder that leadership is not only what we achieve, but it is what we awaken in the lives of others. Go in peace, go in purpose, go in power, go continuing to do good work. Amen, Amen, Ashe, and may it be so.
Please join us across the hall at the reception area for a reception. Thanks so much for coming, everybody.